everyone. You're obviously confused and aroused.
Then where are we now?
Do you have idiots on your planet?
It's me, Slurmcast, remember from high school?
Hello, you're listening to the Slurmcast, a podcast for no reason. Today we will be discussing Futurama Season 2, Episode 3, Ahead in the Polls, with your hosts, Tommy Roulette,
Hello.
Pete Woodward,
That's me.
and I'm Rick Horchie. Joining us today is our special guest, Sean Jaundice. How you doing, Sean?
Pretty good.
Hi, Sean.
Hi.
It's nice to have you here. I feel like I've seen you more in the last few days than I have in the last several months.
Yeah.
That's probably true. It's
Oh, hey. No cold opening in this episode.
no cold opening, but goddamn if I can figure out what that cartoon was at the beginning. I tried to watch it a couple times, just like forget
You
it.
know what it's called?
Something polka pig ballerina orchestra.
Cocoa Needles, the Boss from 1927. I don't know.
So is it like a precursor to Scarface or something?
I don't know. I didn't even notice what it was.
I couldn't make it out. It was visual gibberish.
Do you notice the cartoon in the...
I watched this 5 times, 3 of which I was drinking and in my garage. And my Netflix on my Wii isn't so hot in the car hole. So sometimes it took a minute to kind of get there. So one time I did see it, but I do not remember it.
Yeah, I don't...
I forget to watch it now, because who cares?
We're gonna bring it
never
up
has
anyway.
anything to, yeah, that, I mean, it's
It
different
usually
every time.
has-
It's their couch gag, whatever.
It's dancing pigs, for some reason.
They also have the little,
The
brought
thing
to
at the
you
bottom.
every-
I like
Yeah,
that
so-
better.
I
That's
know,
that's
so
more
that's kinda
entertaining than...
That's...
Yeah.
2 couch
We name
gags.
our
Although The
podcast
Simpsons had 2.
episodes after the
Chalkboard
tagline.
couch.
Yeah, so Tom's
Yeah.
definitely gonna write that down. We don't even need to pay attention to those.
Oh, all right. Well, you wanna
I
start
mean,
over then?
it's like we can slack on that part because he'll do the homework later
This
on,
one was from the makers of Futurama. That was the little
Oh.
tag at the bottom.
which is 100% true.
And it was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's good, especially still kind of early on in the series, because like the first season ones were really softballed ones of just like, oh, we can pretty much say anything because it's different every time, and this is our new show. And so, anyways, before we talk about the episode, I just wanted to ask you, we've talked about Futurama before in the past, just not so much about episodes in particular, but just in general, and a lot of times we've compared it to The Simpsons because we're both big Simpsons fans. You're one of the biggest Simpsons fans I know on the planet.
Bigger than most people would ever know. Even one of my coworkers went to my house and he was like, "Oh, I really thought that you just liked."
I didn't know that.
collect-"
You're
Yeah.
one of those.
Yeah, I got lots of weird stuff like
How much did those
unopened.
Japanese sex dolls that look like all the Simpsons family cost you?
Well, oh, you were making a joke. I literally was like, just
Do they make those?
I was like, just
I
because
don't
I
know.
collect stuff doesn't mean that I know the offhand price. But that was a good one.
Let me check eBay real quick.
So, Futurama came out just from, us talking about it in the past or whatever, and kind of I'm probably making some assumptions or whatever. But when it came out, were you excited about it? Did you know about it ahead of time? Where you're like, oh, Matt Groening has a new show coming out. Did you watch it from the beginning, or did you wait until it was out for a little bit? Or
I think I was kind of excited, but there was sort of a point where, it's like I graduated high school.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And I sort of was like
That's-
out doing
that's a big
stuff,
difference for sure.
To where, I didn't really.
Everybody we've
catch
had
it.
on, and then with the three of us, there's a thing of like Pete was in college.
I was out of college.
You were okay, so you were already out of college. Tom was in high school. I was a junior in high school. He's a freshman. So we were kind of at the prime age, but at the same time, like, not say when The Simpsons hit its prime and I was in like junior high and adolescent, but still young enough to be like, oh, a new,
Well, so but I watched them all.
yeah.
I just wasn't, I wasn't super excited. And at that point too, it's like it was the begin of what I think was the gradual decline of The Simpsons. So they sort of
right around
popped
then.
out,
Yeah.
right around then.
It was what, like 12, season 12
Yeah,
or
but
so?
No, it's
But I thought they were comparable.
Well,
you know what
about
I mean? Like
season
I got about
10.
the
Okay.
same like laughs.
Yeah.
and,
They were actually season 11 during this.
Okay.
Yeah.
During season 2 of Futurama or season?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
like The Simpsons. I still think's pretty watchable up to 13, 14.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe 15,
Yeah.
but it
And
hits
then
a
it comes in
hard-
here and
But it's
there, but
actually
it does,
been
yeah.
on longer than that again now, and I haven't seen it in
Right.
over a decade and a half.
But so I felt like with Futurama, it was
Wait, say that again?
gonna say
Oh,
however I
no. Shit.
Guys, it's a lot of the reason why I
Kindred
wanted
spirits.
to have him on here.
Futurama Lama Ding Dong. Anyways, I didn't feel like it was better. I felt like it was a show that basically was. I mean, it looked a bit like The Simpsons,
was-
but it felt like it jumped off a point from there.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't. It
It
those
wa-
were,
to me,
those were too
it's
big of
as
shoes
different-
to fill. I like to pause and talk a little bit. Doesn't mean I'm not
wait,
there.
no,
What was it?
but wait,
I just was, and then I.
I think this might be our first episode with fisticuffs by the end of it.
Also-
I'm glad I'm on the other side of the table.
This entire podcast is Horchie interrupting anyone talking. So,
And
Tom,
then
wait,
being
you-
interrupted.
anyways, continue, Sean.
But I think that making itself look like The Simpsons probably did it worse than if it just tried to be its own show and not look like The Simpsons.
That's really interesting. Nobody's ever brought that up
I mean, it was
before.
going to be compared to,
Oh, absolutely.
and it was a point where, The Simpsons were starting to wane, but I don't think this took the torch and ran. I think it just took the torch and then walked right next to The Simpsons.
For a while, yeah.
And then when it started to dip, everyone was like, why do I want to watch this? I'm just going to keep watching The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they, didn't artistically look like that or something, it might have, they had a lot of talent.
It's almost like they took the calculated risk to go, will we gain more new fans by seeming similar to this other really successful thing, or is that going to harm us? And I mean, seriously, nobody's ever brought that up, but that's a really interesting take on it. Like, I almost wonder what would it look like if it didn't look like that.
Yeah.
If they just had the animators,
They just sent some descriptions to Korea and saw what came back.
On the DVD, the first season, there's a lot of early sketches that Matt Groening did. He came up with a lot of the the base looks of there's like early drafts of like Fry and Benner and stuff, and so did some of the other guys that were. But yeah, it would be. I wonder what it would have been like if it was just completely different visually.
And that's just me. It's not like a deep rooted thing
Yeah.
I've thought, but I think another thing that took me a long time to realize, like, there's a few things with Futurama, Rama, whichever, that
You can call it whatever you want.
I
You know what?
Simpsons B team.
Call it future. Just feel comfortable in it because right now Pete is reveling in this. So
I love it.
because he.
I just don't
refers
want
to it
Pete
as
to be
that
happy.
same-
I've done a full on course correction. You're going to undo it in, in a matter of minutes.
Was there two things that really set the show apart from that in ways that it didn't hit with me is the show's very much a ensemble show.
Yeah,
And
Right.
I
it
feel
turns
and I
into
feel-
one pretty early on.
and I feel like a lot of that ensemble is weak, like
Really?
paper thin characters. There's some heavy hitters in there, but I mean,
Comedy wise, I feel like maybe not story wise, but I
But
feel like all the
if you-
best stories are the main characters.
there's no meat on them bones though. They're all like slapstick characters, and
Yeah.
they all have like things they can fit in, but there's no legs on that.
Mm-hmm.
Is one compared to The Simpsons. Still, I'm still saying in that.
Do you think
point.
the Simpsons not being as much of an ensemble, but do you mean as far as the family goes that everyone can hold a story, like even the Marge episodes? You don't want to watch them, but when you do, you're like, that was a pretty good Marge episode.
I mean, but they also had a decade of world building before this came out.
Agreed.
Because Homer was a very, very thin character. They all were early on.
I agree, but we are sort of comparing
Yeah.
this show to its predecessor at the same time.
Right.
Back to your.
And then one last point that I had
Yeah.
that not bothered me, but why I've always kind of put it below is I think with The Simpsons, you can tell they're all improv people. They're all comedians. They all came from sketch comedy.
yeah.
And to do the voices. A lot of Futurama weren't that and were voiceover.
They were all
people.
voice people, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that
For the most part.
that loses something, in like Bob's Burgers.
Yeah.
That gels together because it's
because
all
they're all
improv and-
fucking
and
great
live.
stand-ups and yeah.
But that's a like you look at Saturday Night Live, same in that same logic. The people who are actors tend to excel at acting. The people who are comedians tend to excel at like the news. That they hire comedians for the news. But all the people for improv are their general go-to sketch people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of them don't have legs in careers.
Right.
Sorry, a lot of them don't have careers. The actors have careers. The comedians have careers because there's just a natural you can jump into anything pretty easily. Whereas I think when you take an actor and throw them into something like let's.
I think they were probably pretty tightly, leashed on this one too, because so much of the joke in a lot of places is like, here's this science joke,
But
so for this to work,
that's-
it's all got to tie together.
That's what I want to say. Like, Futurama relies on the writing of that episode. It doesn't. And these characters or these voice actors have all got these voices, and that's their character. If the writing isn't there, they're not gonna nail what they're doing. Simpsons different is those voice actors are more able to take not necessarily a good joke or something like that and hit it better or change it up or something like that. That's where you're different.
Do you guys
But I want to get back real quick where you said that Futurama is like slapstick or whatever.
Well, I
No.
feel
I
some of
like
the
that
characters.
But no, I like that actually comparison of it because I was thinking about this, especially with this episode with Richard Nixon. I'm
stole the episode.
I
by the way.
well, I
mean,
love
There's a reason they
I
had
love
to bring him
Futurama.
back.
Yeah.
I think at the time I was definitely right in the viewership that they wanted for. Richard Nixon is kind of lost on me because I was not around there. I knew about him in high school and everything.
Yeah.
But Futurama has a way of being in the future, but being so far in the past where everything is like circular,
Yet
like
smaller.
right.
Well, and as far as
It's-
this episode goes, this is
Standing
100% of the present where we're dealing with this insane presidential election. And it's so like, there's just like, we just happened to hit this coincidentally in this time frame. It's just
Yes.
like, the world is exploding.
but
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, here's
but back
that
to
thing.
slapstick real quick.
I would love to talk about that, but
Like,
Oh, yeah.
well, we are. I
I
mean,
wanna-
everyone has seen this episode. This is a great episode. We may just be able to talk about the actual just underlying of everything about this episode.
I have so many notes too. This,
I know.
This is totally hit like the singularity.
see what you were saying about Nixon, Tom. I think that they just made him 100% a joke, and then the
They made him
only
a funny two-dimensional
It was
Right,
it was
but-
enough where I got
to an
even-
audience who didn't get it, and then when I watch it as someone who obviously didn't go through that, but I follow politics and
Right.
pay attention to that, I'm like, man, there's a lot more there that like this. They almost just made the man a joke when he was a scary tyrannical monster. It
Was
like
he
a
still
good cast
alive at
for
no.
this
it.
point?
He had been
Yeah.
dead 5 years.
Really?
He
So
died
he
in
died in
1994.
94?
Yeah.
Man,
Oh, I felt like it was later than that. I
No.
felt like when they
I looked
started
it up.
this, he
I looked
was-
it up. I have notes about Nixon's and
You know what I'm thinking of? Because they had Nixon on The Simpsons a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did it when he was still alive.
That's the
And-
other thing. Did you notice how like Gerald Ford and like all the presidents that were on Simpsons looked like
The
the
versions of them
same
when they
versions
were, yeah.
that they were on the
Did
Simpsons?
Dan Castellaneta do the Nixon voice?
We don't know.
Oh
think
shit! I
so.
forgot to look
He
it up.
didn't get credited.
He's not credited?
No, he's not. I don't think he's credited.
So what I wanted to know is how come there were heads of long dead presidents?
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing that when it comes to the head stuff,
because it didn't
from
used to be
200
like that.
years before our time, like how and then
Well, they claimed at a point like it was, yeah, they had the technology to do that. So I figured that there's a gap in time
Yeah.
before these people died that they did that. But so you just brought, George Washington back to
Did
life
they
as a
dig
head?
him? Did they dig him up and then like reconstruct
That's-
him,
that's the
or
only explanation.
did they clone him? Because
Oh, okay.
obviously,
Well, why
I
would you
mean,
clone
there's
a
then he
head?
wouldn't
clones.
be him though.
Well,
He-
why would you clone a head?
yeah, instead of the body.
Also,
Or
why
yeah.
didn't Bender buy a cheaper body? That's been bugging me the whole time.
You mean like after he lost his, just go get another body?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Billy West did Nixon's head.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we were talking about Gerald Ford.
That sounds like the.
Oh, that's no.
name
I
of
was
a
asking
crappy
about
90s
Nixon.
album.
Oh no, it was Billy West. I'm sorry. I thought because didn't Dan Castanella do
The Robot Devil.
Ford? No.
Yes.
Gerald
Oh, you mean
Ford's
on The
head
Simpsons he
in
did?
Simpsons, yeah. Is
Well, I
And his
mean,
body.
he credited on it?
Yeah, but he was in that episode. He did it.
I know, but in this, 'cause I think he talks in this.
Yeah, he
Episode,
has
yeah.
a line or two.
but didn't
He
you
sounds
just
just like
say it
the
was-
Simpsons Ford.
Nixon is Billy West. We're trying to
Yes.
figure out who
Oh.
Gerald Ford is right now.
One quick
he was
thing I
a
wanted
president.
to mention because I think it's really interesting for people to go back on something we already went past 5 minutes ago. Do you guys remember that debacle with the Simpsons?
Now I say
cast?
debacle.
Debacle that with the Simpsons cast.
That one debacle you were talking about?
Demanding more money for writing credits because they are improv people and because a lot of the best stuff from season 4, 5, 6, etc., 7,
They
3, whatever,
do that
were
every
them
contract
like,
negotiation.
Well,
but they really were like improving a lot of stuff.
yeah, but I think the bigger reason they did all that is they've always wanted merchandising. And the only thing, I mean, that's the only thing they can get more money from. And then, you know, what's weird now, you look at games like that Tapped Out, they're just clips from like a season 7 episode.
Right,
Or like,
yeah.
And then they're
Oh,
not
really?
getting paid for that.
No.
No.
They don't get paid at all for it because it's already said and done.
That sucks.
They're
So
looking
they
for that sweet,
basically
sweet
can do whatever
Danzig
they
Misfits
want.
deal.
No, I mean,
That-
they could do whatever they want
Yeah.
with it. No, not Castellaneta. I am awful with names.
Harry Shearer.
And he said that they would gladly take an 80 to 90% pay cut for 10% of the merchandise.
Oh yeah, no, I
And
remember.
Fox
hearing
was
that,
like, "Yeah, we'd rather lose you."
yeah, yeah.
Well, and I thought he basically brought them to that point where they're just like, fine, fuck you, go. And he ended up re-signing anyway. Like
He did,
somebody
but-
called the bluff.
The
did,
show
but-
put on like that show set a precedent for like a cartoon voiceover actors in a primetime setting for
Well, that's
like,
because
and they
before
were
The Simpsons,
Well, I mean,
it was
the
basically just Mel
Flintst-
Blanc.
The Flintstones. I mean, this was all old territory. The point is, they branched through a modern era. You
Right.
know what I mean? The 40s, 50s, into the 60s. Really, I feel like what people watched were
it was ever
pretty
since
similar.
Fred Flintstone wanted some Winston cigarettes, and that's when it went downhill.
He wanted to be the face of Winston cigarettes.
Hey, so this starts out right away with the scary door,
Yes, yeah. Let's
which
talk about the scary door.
Dude,
Well,
real
so
quick.
we almost
one
named
of
the
my favorite
podcast
things.
that.
Yeah, that was one of the ideas.
And
And there's several versions of as every time they do it of the scary door. The first one's my favorite. The maybe it's some kind of monster or a weird mirror, maybe something better or whatever.
I love that they took the Twilight Zone thing and then the guy just completely disintegrated. Like that was really like
That was-
a good yes and.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that was I feel like I don't know how you feel about this. I feel like Futurama has a lot of just they have some great just
Say shorthand. I dare you.
no,
Say
that's not where I'm going
shorthand.
at all. Just some great
Gags.
Yogi Berra-ish Fry, lines or whatever.
Hijinks.
And then there's a lot of just cheesy jokes that seem like filler, but at the same time, like they're cute. Like
I just thought that was beat to death. It was like a funny premise, and I was like, ugh.
oh that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
You don't like the
yeah.
scary door?
Just went too long.
Really?
They had it, and then
on the commentary for the DVD, they talk about one of the writers, it might have been David X. Cohen, was like, Twilight Zone would have been good if they would have been as long as the Scary Door episode. or
Twilight
something
Zone
like
was
that.
good.
right.
Yeah.
No, not the length of it. It just then his eyes.
The adding to
then
it,
his
yeah,
hands.
it should have
Honestly,
stopped
if
after
it
the hands.
if it went so long into minutia,
or
of
then it went to
I
yeah,
would
yeah.
have
If
laughed
it did the
so
rake
hard.
joke thing where it just
Yeah.
went too long.
Yeah.
The
My
sideshow
two
Bob.
my two favorite books in that scene, though, is the Newer Testament
I didn't look at any of those.
Yeah, I
and
tried
damn it.
reading
the
those.
Red Dwarf of Courage.
Yeah.
I might have wrote one down.
The later Scary Door one, where he's on the airplane and he's like, I forget how it goes. He's on the airplane and he's like, you're Hitler, and then you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah,
We'll,
I like
we'll
that
get
one.
there
We'll
eventually,
get
I'm
there.
sure.
And then we'll play this clip, and then we'll have you listen to it and be like, "Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
no, I remember."
I was spot on.
Right into the presidential debate, which, this year is like the first year I remember
Who you
where,
voting for,
where
guys? Who you vote
well,
for?
where it is. I mean, it's just 100% shit show, and normally it is sort of the. I am Jack Johnson, and I'm John Jackson, and we're basically the same, aside from what side we part our hair on.
That felt like a primary to me. 'Cause it's just like, and then with those names, it's like you guys are probably hardcore Democrats. I mean, any kind of Irishy.
Well, right.
And then John and Jack.
I mean, one of them's a
there.
folk singer. It's a whole
Well,
thing.
that was none of the political parties.
But
at the
also,
election.
99 or 2000, that was when people were saying that about Gore and Bush at the time. They were like, really? Aren't they just two sides of the same coin? Or like, how, like, aren't they just part of the same, monster?
Sort of. I mean, that was the election where it came down to like just nothing.
Yeah.
Fraud.
Like,
Back when
I-
things
right,
weren't
right,
so
right.
polarized like
I
they are
gotcha,
now,
but-
back when people were like, I don't know, I could see them both being,
Well, I'm assuming that that's what the bulk of all the, what does one vote count? It has
Yeah.
to be directly
Yeah.
related to.
When
that-
did
it
this
was
one
like
air,
he-
Tom?
He only won by like a
December
matter of
12th,
like
1999.
So this came out
I'm-
December 12th, 1990. So this was still this
before
was like
the
8
2000
months
election.
before or 11 months before the 2000 election.
weird.
Yeah.
yeah.
and this
that
is
weird.
coming out less. This will be airing less than a month from this current election. Make sure you're registered to vote. If you are listening to this and you're not registered to
I'm
vote,
not registered to vote, and I'm not
you
vaccinated.
Lincoln's secretary's name was Kennedy.
And she was a VJ on MTV, and yet weirdly conservative.
first time today
Didn't really
watching
make
this
that one
episode.
better, but all right.
Never noticed this before. When they're at the registering to vote, the dudes for legalization of hemp, legalization is spelled wrong.
Dave's
It's
not here, man.
Legalization.
Nice.
They chewed that joke to the ground. Too,
Oh, I
man.
No, but you know what? All right.
But the
I just-
Cheech and Chong
I
reference
just-
was just a
yeah,
nice
it was
slip
fine,
in.
I
whatever.
still laughed
There-
at that. And then the
Look,
cheeseburger.
The cheeseburger thing was, since we started this podcast and I've been watching these episodes every week, was the hardest I've laughed out loud. It's the animation for the timing of that, of just the slow reach down of like, I got to check this brochure, and it was just like, I saw it coming because I've seen this episode a million times, but I
mean,
don't know.
So
currently watching that, we're at a place where it's a little bit more. It's a less of a stigma of being a stoner than it is now. But back then, that was like,
By the third
Yeah.
time I watched it, I did like it. But the first couple of times when you're like, I'm like kind of drinking, I'm like, this isn't funny. Like none of this. It like didn't grab me that way. But by the third time when I'm like already used to the characters, I'm like, all right, yeah. The burger thing at first, I was like, well, burger, come on, man. The timing was great though.
Yeah.
You know what
All
I
right,
mean?
good.
But some of the background gags in there too, with the tasty crats and the finger lickings and the rainbow wigs.
Yeah, I like
Oh
the
yeah, a
finger
lot of
lickings.
good stuff going
and
on
I
at that
love
rally. or
John
whatever.
DiMaggio's like just American like general like drill sergeant type.
Oh, with
voice.
the National Ray Gun Association.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
when he
I
plays
thought that
that
was
guy.
Hogan for the longest time.
No, that's John
It's
DiMaggio.
very close,
Bender.
brother. Did they ever say what third party Zoidberg was in? But the way that they were just completely dismissive of him when he's just like, sometimes it's a viable option, and they're just like, whatever.
No, I don't think they did. I think she just made her Freaks and
Making fun of
Mutants.
Nader fans and
Which-
Nader
Yeah,
voters.
that was at that time. Yeah.
By the way, I mean, if the whole thing's voter apathy and all that, The Simpsons did do it in one
Actually,
third of a Halloween
they
episode.
also did the-
and nailed that episode hard.
Yeah.
And then just with that, and go ahead, throw your vote away.
The third party thing, and then also the candidates being so similar. That was their whole thing with Clinton and,
Kang and Kronos.
Dole, right?
What?
Was
Oh, where they're
Kronos and
holding
Kang
the
were-
hands going down the street, and they're like, when it's Dole and Clinton, and they're like, "Do you know how else to whatever?"
If you
blah,
can
blah,
think of
blah.
a better way to exchange protein strands, I'd like to know. And you're constantly holding hands. That's so good. Thanks for taking care of Dole for me.
One of my favorite lines for that, the candidates being so similar, was I think this 3% tax doesn't go far enough,
yeah.
and the other candidate, I think it doesn't go, or goes too far enough, or whatever. I
goes
totally
too
fucked
far.
that up.
I don't think it goes
doesn't
far
go too
enough.
far enough, or something like that. Whatever.
It doesn't go too far enough because
don't-
it was like exact opposites.
Yeah. No, he was just like, well, opposite of the general idea of it, but also agreeing with.
But then did you realize that they tied that directly into the thing about the miners getting trapped and the because it was a tax in titanium, and then all of a sudden
that's
the
right.
titanium value goes through the
Yeah,
roof.
there was a lot of little nods. It took me a couple of runs through before I
I
kind
didn't
of
realize that. Yeah.
tied a lot of it all sort of adds up and makes sense in there.
It's a coherent episode. It's a
in
cohesive episode for having so much going on.
That just blew
think
my
there's-
mind right now. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, so that 3% tax would have been sizable.
Yeah.
That's why in Bender's 40% titanium.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching it a few times too, it took me a bit, and I don't know. There's something in the directing of the episode that just doesn't hit right. Like it's just a lot of ba boom pow.
Jump
into
cut
Not a
kind of
smooth
stuff.
pace.
for the writing. The writing is it does come back and stuff. And my theory, and I've had this for a while with a lot of other shows, I think that this show was probably meant to be seen with commercials, which obviously there was commercials, but sometimes that pause, and then when it comes back in, makes more sense than when you're like, boom, okay, here's
And
the
then it
next
just goes
thing.
right on.
Yeah.
And that could have been with this, you know what I mean? Like in this show, like that Lost. Like it's unwatchable if you watch it, just without commercials, because it's literally like he's falling off a cliff.
You need
There
that.
he
And
is.
then we pick him up, and you're like,
You need
what
that
the-
dramatic.
And
Right, like, what's
they've
gonna
referenced
happen?
that before in some of the episodes where it'll they make a reference to cutting to a commercial and then cut right back in. But did they when Morbo and Linda were on before for
the news.
for the news, were they on channel
Pause.
were they on channel square root of 2 then?
I think so. Yeah,
Were
I think
they-
I wrote
remember.
that in my notes.
I didn't
It
even
was
notice
It was something like that. Yeah, I think that was concurrent with whatever the last episode was.
I didn't realize that it was square root of 2 before. I thought that would be
It was.
kind of ridiculous.
Tom implicitly told me that I would not need to know that.
Any math?
So-
Yeah. There's a quiz at the end of this that you have to pass or we don't air the episode.
Oh, all right. I'm going to take off.
Oh, the less fortunate, they get all the breaks.
There was a Slurm sign right before that Bender tiny car bit.
There is. The RC car when he's driving around at the
Right before there, it's right outside, and there's alien language, and it just says drink.
You guys
so it's drink
walked
Slurm.
right past the first appearance of the brain slugs, right? That's kind
Yeah,
of a
no,
big
we
that was
did.
the first appearance,
We
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
That was a big bit in that political rally or whatever they were
Yeah,
at.
the fries joke was it was a pretty solid one too. For me,
what did
you
you
say
say?
that now.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah.
It's compare your lives to mine and then kill yourselves. Was
Uh,
another good one that came out of that.
Who said that? For
Bender, when he sells his body after he is rich,
yeah,
and they're
I gotta say for all my not being a huge fan of Bender, he had some good moments in this one, and that's why I say
I'm not a big fan of Bender either.
Yeah.
He's number one when I'm talking about. There's no depth to that character. All
he was
is
who
is-
I thought of when
and-
you said that.
And by the way, he's an asshole. Sure, he makes up for some things. He's he's like Sheldon.
Yeah,
in,
he's,
a Big Bang Theory.
yeah.
It's like no one
He's-
would ever like you. No one would want to live with you. You've robbed from everyone here. You know what I
They're
mean?
just-
It's-
They're very
he's
forgiving
the
people.
Cordelia before Cordelia became a character. You know.
sure, yeah.
Just-
She had a depth of character.
Eventually, but for a while, she was just the antagonist. She was the one to go.
Yeah, him and the I hate to say that I don't know his name, but the Jamaican dude.
Oh, Hermes.
Yeah, not a lot there.
No, they never really. He is very much.
They
a side
do
character.
build out his backstory.
He has a
though.
couple episodes,
Yeah, I
but
get
it's
it, but it's like having the backstory of Chief Wiggum. Like I don't care.
yeah.
It's you don't.
except for the Sky Cops episode.
Sky Cops.
Yeah, it was a later episode.
Well,
So dumb.
that was like 2 years ago. Actually, I thought Sky Cops was kind of funny, and then in a later episode, now they do like an air gag. He flew through it as Sky Cops. I thought it was
hate
all right.
the new beginning of The Simpsons.
Yeah, it's a little much.
Yeah.
Especially when you think it was such a big deal when they changed the original beginning to the last
Like
beginning.
the HD version?
No. Like there was a different beginning.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
first
No, yeah, I know
season.
you're talking about.
Then when they went into that, it was like, oh, and
By
then
the
you
way,
get to
we're
see,
going off into our
you
own
get to
Simpsons
see,
podcast
hey,
No,
a
I
little
now.
bit of the town. They could have just. I would have been fine just seeing some more characters, seeing a clearer version of the town.
Yeah.
You don't really need more.
Did they
hard-
change it?
You
that
don't need him
much?
to like do
it's-
the whole thing where he's skating down and then he also sees whatever and he jumps on when he falls on Barney and the leaves. Was that the original one or was that the later one?
He,
when he,
does-
like,
I think
hops
he does
on
it
or
in
whatever.
the new one too.
Yeah, that's still there.
Yeah.
Okay, so
like
that
a
didn't
new
change.
thing
Yeah, there's
in the
bits
new
of
one
things
is
in
like
the original.
the bullies cutting the head off of
Yeah, Jebediah
thing, and then
Springfield lands
falling
on
on Ralph.
yeah.
But now the worst thing is
And then
like
he
when
says
they
a
have the
different line
Simpsons
sometimes.
come on there. There's always like a gag over.
in the air.
Oh yeah, they
in
do
the
that a
air,
lot. Yeah,
and I
I've
don't-
noticed that. I still catch
like-
an episode here and there.
But I
Speaking-
mean, you're talking about a show that does that now. I mean, all they do is adding an extra thing, but I don't think it needed.
I
it.
love when shows eventually get to a season where they stop showing the opening credits and they just add more content and they just have the
Yeah.
credits at the bottom.
Well, they do that on any show. There's episodes of The Simpsons, even Family Guy. Where
That's
they'll
true.
Just jump
Yeah, they'll
in,
do
Where they
that.
write it long enough, or
yeah,
they write it long enough
usually
one and
they-
go like, yeah.
need the space.
Yeah.
Speaking
That's
of
why
cutting
you
off heads,
That's why you hug Apu again.
so a good chunk of this episode revolves around Bender's head being solo because he sells his 40% titanium body to get rich.
What would have stopped someone from just walking up to him and taking all the money out of his mouth?
Well, that happens later on, doesn't it?
Does it? I don't
I-
think
Nope.
so.
I'm almost positive it happens at some
I
point.
think you're suggesting
Sure.
what would happen if Hillary Clinton wins.
Well, there. So first of all,
She's gonna take
Would
the
you-
money
out
out of
of
all
my
of our
mouth.
kids' mouths.
and our guns. Fry is
Yeah, Hillary's gonna take the guns out of our mouths. Good one, Pete. Lightning fast Pete. We call him Lightning Pete over there.
so my first
Trump's gonna
Fry
make
is
me
so
put one in my
dumb
mouth.
comes when he doesn't realize that Bender's missing his body. He says, "Did you get a haircut?" 'Cause- I mean, so. The one dimensionality you talk about, that bothers me more with Fry, and I get that it's like the device with him being alternately dumb and brilliant.
Fry has heart though. Like he's always got a depth of character because he's a good person.
But
Fry, or
well, sometimes he's lazy and slothful.
well, so are you. But I think you're a good person.
I don't think those adjectives would necessarily apply to me.
I don't think there's a point that if you opened your chest, or I'm sorry, if
If
Nixon had your head
if
and
you
opened your chest.
unscrewed my head and poured a bunch of booze into it, that it would still
No,
work.
I'm saying it's same in this episode. I think if Nixon had your body and opened the chest, I don't think there'd be a stolen infant. You know what I mean? I'm saying he's a bad guy.
Well,
that's
that's-
all. And
that's
so
just
he's
be-
only good for like cute whatever laughs. I'm just with Fry. There is
Yes.
a depth of character in there. He's deeply wounded at times, and hurt and
Eventually,
things bother him.
but we haven't gotten there yet.
All Bender ever does is get his comeuppance, and then he feels bad. Which generally, if I'm going to throw it back to The Simpsons, is usually what happens in a Lisa episode. She gets her comeuppance,
Yeah.
and then it makes her realize, like, even though I'm a good person, I do bad things.
For being a know-it-all.
But right, but Bender is a jerk, does something jerky, and he's like, oh, bad things can happen to me. I'm going to be nice for the. It's like Ebenezer Scrooge.
I think
know what I
he's
mean?
referred
Yeah.
to himself as a lovable rascal, and I think that holds.
I mean, he's funny. I do think he's funny. This all stems from me saying it's like an ensemble cast, and I think
Yes.
there's weak members of the ensemble. I think that he's someone who's good for a laugh.
Do you think-
and he's good to like move a plot forward?
Do you think
But
maybe
I don't
then-
think he's a
in-
guy where if
When
it's
there's
all
a
about
focus
him,
on
I'm
him,
like, eh.
it doesn't
No.
really.
Instead of saying weak members, do you think they all just have complementary strengths?
Well,
I-
that's
'cause-
that's the whole point of an ensemble. It
So-
does fall together, but I don't think that there's.
Well,
a lot
let's
of, like,
let's drop this early. This is something we've been asking guests for the last few episodes. What character would you like to see as a spinoff, and why?
Oh, jeez.
Think about
Or
it
what character do you think could sustain a spinoff?
Spank about that for a minute. Think about that for a minute. And what I want to just get back to the ensemble cast is it absolutely Futurama is an ensemble cast. The really good episodes are the episodes that feature pretty much everyone,
Like the
and they
Atlanta
just
one, when they go
hit
to Atlanta.
lines, and that there's just
They're all
everything
there,
is
yeah.
there
Comedy-wise,
Like
yeah.
the episodes that revolve around one or two characters or anything like that tend to be the weaker
When they're
episodes.
the best stories are the ones where, for some reason, the three main characters have a lot to do, and they're all very involved in what's going on. They, like Pete was saying, as far as them making a unit, the three of them do make a good, like, it's usually Fry-centric or Leela-centric, but and he is just kind of like the side guy that's there. But when the three of them are doing something, and they're the main in all 3 acts. Like those are the best episodes.
And the writing, the way they do the writing and the banter back and forth between characters or just talking and everything. And it's the same voice actor a lot of times doing both characters, going back and forth. Yeah, The Simpsons probably do that or whatever, but I think it's a little bit
Did you listen to that
quicker.
Billy West Nerdist episode?
I haven't finished it yet, so we'll eventually get to that in whenever. But we already talked about that. But
So, I mean, I really think the only one that would be a normal sitcom spinoff would just be Fry. I mean, you literally could have him before he went there. You could have him getting back to his own time.
Yeah.
You could have him wandering through time and
Yeah.
space. He's
Like Quantum Leap?
By far and away. I mean, he's the tie in that show to our time.
Yeah. He's
our
us.
dumb
He's us.
person.
He's
and he's like a
every man,
really likable guy and generally gets the funniest lines.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
In my opinion.
I would also, I feel so bad, but Calculon's show, I would
All
My
My
Circuits.
Circuits.
I would watch a show about
Jinx.
Calculon where he was.
That's the
acting
second time
on
he's come
that-
up.
Oh, you mean
on
like
that
a
show.
Gary
Yeah.
Shandling kind of
Sort of where you see him and like
Yeah.
I think
not
that's
Gary
exactly what you
like,
said, wasn't it, Tom?
Larry Sanders?
Larry Sanders.
It is.
Yeah. I could see that
Yes.
as being really entertaining too.
Calculon is my favorite character on Futurama, period.
But just him interacting exactly like Larry Sanders,
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
And you know what's funny about that is he's a pompous buffoon, but you could see like good storylines about. You could see him. Frasier is a bad example, but Frasier was kind of a 2-dimensional character on Cheers, and then he became this thought out. You know,
He was making salads and scrambled eggs and all kinds of shit.
But Calculon, I could see a show about him. I could see
Oh,
him
yeah.
like
It would be funny.
living and learning and getting through life
Yeah.
or whatever. But like,
I
but
would-
like Zap Brannigan, I couldn't see a show about
I-
him. I feel like he would never go
Yeah,
past just
that's-
having lines and being like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's Bender. He's a Bender. He's an asshole.
You know, I like when they use him as like the mouth for the military.
yeah.
Like that's great.
Oh yeah.
And but when they start doing into like him and then trying to get laid, it's just one-dimensional jokes.
Yeah, but
I would say
still funny,
you know what would
but-
be or is a good spinoff is when they put Bender and the professor together and then made Rick and Morty.
Dan Harmon strikes again.
Which is a phenomenal show.
I can't say enough good things about
Did you,
Rick and
Horchie,
Morty.
notice that, or
Leela's
you,
bone-
Sean, know that in the
Don't ask
museum,
Sean anything.
the
Go ahead,
Museum
ask
of
me.
Heads, that Sarah Michelle Gellar was.
Oh yeah,
in
I
there?
wrote him down.
Oh, no.
You probably did. You look at the
I have
info
all
fairs
of them.
Okay, so you've got the.
in
We're
your-
not naming all of
in
them.
jars.
No, I
and
am.
You
You've
have
got the,
all of
the
them in
B
jars
stars.
in
The
your
B
basement.
stars are John Turturro, Eric Stoltz. Can't read my writing there. Oh, Martin Lawrence, Elvis, Mimi Rogers, and Sarah Michelle Gellar. I thought it was a weird mix of.
I mean,
people
Mimi
that aren't
Rogers
really-
might turn her stuff around.
The best is the porn stars. Let me read the porn stars.
Okay.
They might reboot
Okay.
Lost in Space again with her.
The porn stars in the top row is Long D. Silver, Ron Jeremy, and Tracy
Wait, Long
Lawrence.
D?
Long D.
They couldn't say
Oh,
long
yeah.
dong.
I
no,
guess not.
Long.
Maybe
D.
it wasn't
I
enough
believe-
space in the thing under
There's
the
There's not
jar.
enough. The bottom row, the two heads on the porn star is Jill Big Breast.
Those are our future presidents.
and Samuel Genitals.
Yeah, I saw that. Samuel Jackson, yeah. The TV stars were Seinfeld, Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny, Tim Allen, and Katie Seagal. With
And
their, like,
Lucille Ball.
You know,
and Lucille Ball.
mentioning X-Files, there was a point where I told you I wasn't going to read into anything about this, and I thought about just watching every other
yes.
episode of the Fox lineup
That night.
except Futurama.
Okay, Sean, let's.
But it was a weak Simpsons. It was like
Oh, it's a repeat. It is a season 10
it was a
season
repeat.
finale.
That's what I thought, because when I looked at the date, I was like, the Simpsons didn't fall on there. Yeah, there was the one where they go to Tokyo, and there's some laughs in
They
it.
go to Tokyo.
But it's one of the ones where it's like there
They
has nothing to
steal
do with
Ned
family.
Flanders' free airline tickets and go to Tokyo, and it's the one where they're in the hotel room and they're like, "Oh, this must be the TV show that
Is it the
causes
Mr. Sparkle
seizures."
episode?
No, way after
no.
that.
It's a whole
this
different
is season
one?
10, or this was season 10, where they're all watching it and they all have seizures, and then Homer walks in the room and goes, "Oh," and then lays down
Oh,
and
yeah,
just
okay,
start
all right,
like
yeah, I remember
that's
that.
the only thing I
Weird to
remember.
believe that they were doing that and when in Rome. Yeah,
Right.
and some alright ones.
Uh,
Just right before the head
Canadians at the
museum,
end were great.
That whole RC car sequence with Bender's head was actually really cool. Like, I'm sure they blew this episode's budget completely on the
that
3D
looked
for
awesome. I thought it looked great.
And it still looks good. And that was
It
you
does.
know.
Well, I remember Futurama being, at least in my opinion, a real early adopter. Don't
Yes,
listen
they
to me
were.
when I say Rama.
Yeah, I can't. Sorry, it was a physical reaction.
Try to be here. Try to be in the moment.
That's not what I
I'm
do.
here.
That's not
I'm
what
here.
I do.
Rama, 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 Rama. And I like
Pete, it's not okay.
I
Go
remember
ahead.
them being one of the early adopters of it. A lot
Yeah,
of their
they were.
space
It
stuff
was
from
a-
the beginning
yeah.
was, and I loved it because like that's kind of what I was going
And
to
at that
school
time,
for.
yeah.
They used the 3D
Oh yeah, so yeah, for you, that
Were you
was
gonna
like
be
a
an
really neat thing
astronaut?
to be in.
What's that?
Were you going to be an astronaut?
A delivery boy.
No, yeah.
No, the 3D animation in Futurama, a lot that they do is like really cool.
Well, when they
and
started
it
doing,
takes a long time to do, apparently, when you're trying to draw that
well, when they did
flip book. I tried to do a flip book, and
You have to relax your eyes and look at it, and eventually you'll see the sailboat.
when they started doing
It's a
more
schooner.
Animated films, like even in
Edit
like,
out any Kevin Smith stuff. Okay, go ahead.
even like the minor like computer animation stuff they would have done even in like Disney movies
Yeah.
before they were CGI. I'd watch that and be like, I don't know why they don't just do this on. I mean, money wise,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't just do it on, something like Futurama,
Yeah.
Rama.
I just okay. I gotta say this. I had a conversation with a girl the other night who's
No,
a teacher.
I thought this. I thought
How
this
was your mom
podcast
Did you
doing?
was, like,
did you do
real.
the Nixon air quotes when you said that, Tom?
Speaking of
a
art-
conversation.
For the first, okay, she's a teacher in like a charter school, and art
Oh, she was telling
Art-
you to get off the property.
art is oh, never mind. I was just gonna say that art now is like capture motion and 3D, all kinds of stuff. Like that's what art classes are. Is like
Oh, yeah?
motion
Class-
capture
like-
and
Art now is. I was like, what English am be?
Was her name
me fail English. That's impossible.
Damn it, I can't remember that porn star's name. What was it? Big Boobs McWhatever or something?
Jill Big Breast.
Yeah, was that the girl you were talking to?
I was talking to Jill Big Breast the other day, and she was saying that.
You know what's funny is she actually changed her name, just because her producer said her other one was too Jewy, and she got to Hollywood. It was big breastowitz. Like, just drop the wits, bang 30 or 40 guys on camera.
There you go.
Star is
That's-
born.
That's what you did because it used to be John DeWitt's.
Her name
John
used to be
DeWitt.
Big Breast Heston. Never mind.
This is off topic, but one of my like whenever I say that, it's a reference to home movies, where
The John Benjamin.
yeah, there's a part where there's telling a story of not Brendan, but his friend's ferret named P. Popo,
Yeah.
and he shows like the history, and he's like, "What's your name? P. Popowitz? Not in America. You're P. Popo now." It's like
yeah.
I love-
Yeah.
I make so many references to that, and no one will ever like, "You're P. Popo now."
If you hadn't explained the whole thing, I now I remember that part of that episode. I would not have got that reference.
I'm glad that they had a whole, special exhibit on the golden age of mutton chops when they went into the Hall of Heads. Like that was the
What-
big.
It
That
was.
was
I tried to do the math when I was watching that, and I couldn't figure out what it was. It was like
I didn't write down the years, but it was like
something.
I
the
like that,
late 1800s.
That Nixon talks about his body, and he's like, pasty, wrinkly, riddled with phlebitis, a good Republican body.
I googled phlebitis because I didn't know what it was.
I was going to introduce you as Sean Phlebitis.
But they tucked so much stuff into that whole presidential head thing too. Like there's Jesse the Head Ventura was one of the presidents.
Oh,
He
I
was
didn't-
tucked
I
in
didn't
there.
see that.
When they went into the closet of presidential losers, Rob Reiner's head was in there.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
see that. I saw.
Did he?
I wrote those-
Did he
those are
Dole
get
and
nominated? Did he run?
No,
for
he's
something?
No, I
never
think
run,
that
but
was
he's
just like
really
a-
politically
yeah, they were
active.
probably just.
Well, yeah, I get it, but
I mean, I think they're just proposing.
not that I
that-
know of. If he did, and he
that
did like a
maybe at
small like Stephen
at a
Colbert.
point.
Like at 2028 or something.
He's
But,
not going to live that long.
And then
I'd vote for Meathead. Meathead for prez.
absolutely, I mean,
I mean, we could get him.
If he was running against Trump, it would. Yeah, it would be.
So when
Basically,
Clinton's,
we have our archery bunker. Now we just need our meathead.
when Clinton's head starts hitting on
Nader. Nader was
Leela,
the meathead.
and it was it Ford that did the apologies. Like he just does that to every meaty looking woman.
yeah. Every meaty looking
That
woman.
was just as relevant, or I mean, right around the time when right after Nixon died. Like,
How do you
like
mean?
4 or 5 years as a, or was that going on currently?
Well, this would have been
How long-
99. Clinton
how
would
long
be on
was-
the way
when
out.
he was on his way out.
He was president 92 to 2000.
Oh, 2000? Really?
Well, I mean, George
No.
W.
George-
Bush
oh, yeah,
was
that-
inaugurated in January of 2001.
That's right.
That's every 4 years.
Do
Tom.
the math, sheeple. Do the math.
When they the one thing that they reference so many times. I mean, it's the basis of this, and there's something later on where I think it's one of the bumper stickers that gets stuck on Bender's body. Nixon's head is the one. There was a hardcore band in the late 80s, early 90s. I think they were from Toledo called Nixon's Head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like there was a kid in my grade school who actually had like a Nixon's
I
Head
thought you were
sticker
gonna
on one of
say,
his folders.
Mojo Nixon, and then I thought you were going to say Reagan Youth, and then you said something I've never heard of.
No, and I'll
I thought you were going to say you knew some dude who gave Nixon head.
he would have been
Because that would have been way more interesting than this band.
maybe.
Every
Play
Tom,
it. Let's hear him.
Well, yeah, we can
every
give them
Tom,
a
Dick, and Harry.
renaissance.
No offense, Truman, Nixon. and-
Well, while Pete's looking that up, this episode, I've just say also had Dan's favorite Bender line ever
What's
with
that?
the dream sequence, and he's
Oh,
like, "I had a
yeah.
dream, and I think there was a 2, and
Yeah.
there is a 2. If you
yeah, there's
look
a little.
at it,
It's not
you
that big.
see
I
it.
mean, it's
No,
not that
yeah.
small. You can see it. It's pretty.
in that binary dream."
Yeah. That was kind of a cute Fry Bender moment. I like that Fry's over his little head, and there's the shots coming from down there, and I like a lot of the buddy like Fry Bender stuff. That's a fun, anytime they use that. I don't know what else happened in this.
No.
Did
I
you guys
wanna
watch
go,
Futurama?
Well, Pete is looking this up or whatever. I
No,
wanna
wait.
go-
Let's all
I've found a primary source. Keep going. I'll chime in soon.
I really have something that I really want
give
to
us a
talk
blow
about
by
right
blow.
now. Because you and I had a
Tom,
conversation the other day,
I would love
and
to hear what you have to say.
you were talking about you were going to watch every other episode during Sunday.
And then try to
So-
reference those points to like, well, so I guess it's sort of like when Mulder.
Yes, but I looked up
It was a high
the
concept.
episodes, and number one, the worst part, not the worst part, but Simpsons was a rerun of the season finale, and that did best as far as ratings goes the entire night.
Yeah,
Besides
yeah.
X-Files,
Well,
Besides
what were the
X-Files,
what were the
so-
two specific other episodes.
there was
What were
King
the
of
other shows?
King of the Hill. It went King of the Hill at 7:30,
Uh-huh.
and then went Simpsons at 8, which was the repeat of what we talked about.
Yeah, yeah.
Then we went Futurama at 8:30, and then 9:00 was
Oh, okay.
X-Files.
What was on,
X-Files. Also, that episode had Shia LaBeouf in it.
what episode of the
weird.
X-Files?
As a young boy,
It was called Goldberg Variation. It was in season 7.
Oh,
Did
I,
it have
I
the
stopped
wrestler
watching
in
by
it?
season 7.
Goldberg the wrestler,
No. It had Shia LaBeouf in it, though.
but was okay. I stand corrected
What were
in
the
that
specific episodes?
the first line in this article about Nixon's head is them saying we are not a hardcore band. That was a joke, but they were a punk band from Philadelphia in the late '80s, influenced by the Stooges and the Velvet
Oh,
Underground.
that Nixon. Yeah, I knew that. When you said hardcore, I was like, what?
No, I'm thinking of the other Nixon's head,
I
the
was thinking,
psychedelic one, man.
I was actually thinking of Richard Nixon's head that whole time. Riddled with phlebitis. I laughed the hardest at the checkers joke. I like
that one.
loved
That
it.
was fantastic.
I was.
Oh, yeah. No, that
Shut
was
up!
Great. That was fucking great.
Sorry
yeah,
if I clipped
What?
out.
Okay.
Was there a... Oh, go ahead.
Because he treated that dog so mean.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to
Did
remember.
they pull that
that
dog
was-
up by its ears on national TV?
I don't know.
The
The only
Simpsons
reference
make
I have to
reference
that
to
was that movie Dick with what's his face from the Addams Family, and you know what I'm talking about?
Shia LaBeouf.
That shitty '90s comedy or whatever with Kirsten Dunst and Michelle
Williams.
Michelle Williams.
Yes. That wasn't shitty. It was a good movie.
Yeah, it was okay. I wasn't ready for it when it came out. Like I wasn't ready for that.
Did
that
you let
kind
them
of
know
comedy.
that?
Was Dick better or worse than the movie Good Dick? Because that could get pretty confusing.
Was that any good? I never saw it.
I didn't see it either. that's
Anyways,
why I'm
Have you ever
asking.
tried to Google dick on at all? 'Cause that's not the first thing that's gonna come up.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When it came out, were you in high school?
Yes.
And did everyone call you Dick in
Yes.
high school?
Did-
You were
did-
not ready for that film. I was gonna make a joke, and then I
Dick
did the math, and I was
Orgy.
like, "Oh, I could see why he." Yeah, all
Dick
right.
Orgy was my like. We're gonna change your name a little bit. Name in high school.
I just got
mine-
that.
Yeah.
My mom's got a friend who has like such an embarrassing name, and there's a chance he would listen to this and get so mad. But his name was Richard Pepperoni.
That's really. I mean, that's not terrible.
Come on, old Pepperoni Dick. You know, every day in first period, everyone had to sit. I would sit and
His-
watch.
his name-
I'm laughing about it right now.
His name could be Richard any long meat like last name like Richard
And-
Salami. Richard, you know.
He was Richard Pepperoni before the internet. So like all you had
Was the phone
being-
book.
No, was being mean to other people.
Oh,
that was the only fun. That's
I
why
thought
they
you-
were bullies, is because you couldn't entertain yourself. You literally like, what do I got here? Yeah, that kid's got weird
Yeah,
hair.
yeah.
I'm like,
So
I thought you were
tear
gonna say
him
the
a new
phone book
one,
where you
make
would
up for my,
find
my parents'
find a
divorce.
funny name. And,
Were you originally going to say you didn't understand the Checkers reference, or what?
okay,
Yes,
I was
yeah,
gonna say that
that's what
the
I was
only
gonna
reference I
say.
had was I feel like in that movie they brought that up, and was there something in the Watergate recordings where did
No,
he
no,
yell
no.
at- okay,
there's
that's what
there's a speech that's known as the Chester speech.
Checkers.
Or Checkers speech. Chester.
No, yeah,
Chester
what's
was
that?
a
I don't,
chicken.
I don't remember what that is. Does he yell at his
No.
dog or whatever?
Did
I
you
remember.
guys
Don't
know-
they take care of the dog? Isn't that
There's-
the movie Dick? Isn't that?
Did
No.
you guys know that he was called Chubby Checkers because it was a play on Fats Domino, who was popular? Chewing that.
Oh,
Checkers?
this is shitty
Domino?
marketing.
There's a reference in a Simpsons episode where where Mr. Burns is doing like a Clockwork Orange to Santa's little helper to make him a guard
Yeah, yeah,
dog.
yeah,
Yeah.
And they're showing mean things.
Yeah.
And one of the clips
Oh,
I
was-
believe
oh,
is
God, yes, this is
Nixon
my
pulling his
favorite.
dog
Yeah.
up by his
And
ears.
that's a-
And I believe my
That's a
mom
reference.
at one point was
Yeah.
like, Nixon was an asshole. He used to pick his dog up by his ears
Yeah,
while America would cringe.
Yeah, yeah.
That's how my mom talked, and that's why I talk. She's right. America
Yeah.
would watch in terror.
You know, he received the dog as like a gift from a lobbyist or something.
To make him look like a human.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
That's why they do all this.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
they all have dogs. That's
And-
why they
yeah.
show him in church. Like, look at him. He's like a normal person. He's got a pet. He
And
can
it-
Hey, you
walk.
guys, I think
So-
Sean's onto something.
So he
You
gives
really-
this televised speech, basically apologizing but not apologizing for it, and just going like, if it's wrong to hold on to this dog, then I'm going to be wrong all day long.
The lie
Checkers is
detector.
just, I can't get rid of Checkers. I'm going to go start a secret war in Cambodia and somewhere else and some other thing. And
Allegedly.
yeah, I'm going to tape people secretly in the White House. And I'm going to meet with Elvis to
But
make him an anti-drug
You're
agent.
petering out. You're petering
Nixon-
out. You're losing them.
Nixon does end up getting a discount for staying in the Watergate again because he had already
Because
been
he'd already
there.
been there. But it's a really shitty room.
yeah, I know.
It's like
And
an
I-
off-strip
and
Vegas
so-
hotel.
I wondered if the whole hotel was shitty.
That's what I
or
was trying to
just his
figure out.
room.
Because it
Maybe he skimped out and
like
wanted the
when
cheaper
they
room?
built it, it was this fancy luxury apartment. I don't know if they were making a comment saying like they just gave Nixon the shitty room, or if it was more of a critique going, "Oh, I went to the Watergate last year and it's fucked."
Well, or even just like, yeah, it was this huge thing, and now it's deteriorated to this point. But
Yeah.
I took it as they just, it's just a shitty hotel now. But I do like the idea of maybe he saved some money and got a crappier room.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that.
You could really,
Although it had,
you
like-
could parse that out a whole bunch of different ways. It
But it-
works.
Yeah.
They implied it was like a hooker hotel, though. You know what I mean? Like it had a
Well, it's in Washington.
Well, they
So-
had color stained.
the
on the sign that-
tentacles. I mean, that's
Oh,
like the
the- yeah,
magic
the
fingers.
tentacles,
But
yeah.
they don't put those things in nice hotels,
Yeah,
boys.
yeah. Yeah.
You don't go to like you're not at the Waldorf Astoria.
Yeah.
No, and the
But
nice
then you put a
hotels they
$5
have
bed
the
or
nice
whatever.
hotels have a spa, and you get to pay a couple
Or-
$100 instead of a quarter.
Or like The Simpsons, the
Or-
coin-operated
or as
Bible
Pete
at the
calls it-
Sleep Easy Motel.
or as Pete calls it, a spa. Sean too.
You're right. He's right. When I use it any other time, I call it spaghetti.
The grappling hook that they
That's
the
the
red
cutest.
grappling
That's
hook
one of the
Yeah.
cutest. That,
is my
the
that-
fish with the reverse scuba suit on and the little
Yes,
grappling
it
hook
just
guy.
tugs on the
One of my
little
favorite,
rope.
favorite things.
That was just something that I just went. Oh.
Where are we in the episode?
I don't know. Right now they're
Nixon,
trying to get Bender's
No, no,
body
wait,
back.
wait.
body.
So
They're
They're
trying to
it
get
back.
Bender's body
Okay.
back from
so we
Nixon.
didn't. Okay, so we didn't even talk about where he talks to Nixon, and Nixon
Dan Castellaneta
tells him that he
wasn't in
misses
this.
having a body,
Yeah.
Yeah, this,
and was like, oh, you shouldn't forgive that, and then it makes Bender have a second
And he
heart
plays-
about it.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like he's-
He plays the white rabbit on the guitar to appeal to the hippies.
So wait. So I loved that, except when he was playing. When
I
he was
like
ju-
that
if
he
they
got
just
the.
ended-
He was at the pawn shop, so he got a guitar.
Right, if they were just
Yeah.
like, and he got the guitar and ended at him strumming, I would have. I laughed, and then
Fine.
we started playing, and then the hippie line was
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah, not
way
great.
to eat it
not great.
up.
Yeah.
That's I have somewhere in my
the
notes.
guitar
I'm
thing
just
was
like
priceless
Yeah.
too.
Nixon's lines, exclamation question mark, because there's so much Nixon lines in here that just refer back to everything he did in his presidency or
Yeah.
anything that just totally gets lost a lot of times on at least me.
Yeah, they
I
use
have
a lot
come-
of that stuff.
I've come to realize a lot of what I know. Nixon is either from my mom or The Simpsons. it's like I've read some things, but it's like I guess I only know impressions of the man.
No, that comes up with me a lot.
anyone
in
knows.
life. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that
There's
whether it's
the-
The Simpsons or whatever shows from the late '80s and all through the '90s. There will be things I'm like, I know about that, and then I'll be reading something or listening to some podcast, and it'll come up like, oh, well, they reference that on the show, and I'll be like, that's why I know about that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't do any research after that. Like,
There's
you
two
know.
solid Simpsons jabs on him, where it's like where
the hell episode, or
well, they
the
show
when
Nixon.
Flanders is the is
Well, they
when
show
he's on the-
Nixon and Kennedy.
Oh, doing
at the
yeah.
debates, and he's like, "I love Duff beer. I myself would express a fondness for that same beverage."
Yeah.
And then
And
there's
then
another one, the Whacking Day one, where they show Nixon at Whacking Day, and then
Oh, the early Whacking Day.
yeah, and he hits his aide. Like he starts beating him on the head, and he's like, "Thank you for."
I thought you were gonna say where
they
where
booed
Flanders
him.
is the devil and Homer eats the forbidden donut and
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm not
Nixon's
done
on the yeah.
I actually just had an
The
article.
thing to keep in mind is just Nixon was basically a horrible piece of shit from day one. Like he got started.
I think we have that in mind.
I mean, he got started in the Joe McCarthy Red Scare stuff. Like he was Joe McCarthy's assistant.
By the way, Pete, for reference, Pete voted in the Nixon election. So just so we know the gender gap in
For
this
point
place.
of reference, the Red Scare was a pretty good Boston band.
yes.
About 5-6 years
Pete
ago.
started the Scarlet Letter.
I wonder how many of the writers grew up with Nixon. Probably for Futurama at this time.
mean-
they
Well, at
probably
least
most
all
of
the
them
ones
did,
with the
you know?
last name Nixon.
I figured it out. Like
probably
if you were
grew up with.
if you were born when Nixon was got into office as president in 1969,
You have
you would have been
superpowers?
30 years old in 1999. So a lot of the writers were
we're probably they
in
grew up
that
with
place.
Nixon. Yeah.
But looking at that 18 to 42, is that what is
I mean,
it?
that's all gotta be straight up like Grain Egg and
Yeah.
X Cohen,
Yeah,
like those
right.
guys. All those guys were like a little too young to be hippies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then but they weren't young and no, they were right in between like
Yeah.
hippie and like
After.
punk. So they sort of
Yeah.
were like 15, 16 when hippie ended. So they still have that sort of like this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, but then they kind of also got that Generation X, like, why do you want to be part of this corporate? I've actually been reading Grain Egg's like Life of is Hell.
Life in Hell.
Yeah, and there's so many. I mean, there's things to Nixon in there in like '87. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he just keeps. They all hate him.
Yeah,
Everybody,
that-
you
yeah,
know,
they-
he's-
Yeah,
he
that's
was like,
something
it
that
was
we
like electing your dad.
yeah.
If your dad picked up his dog by the ears.
I bet a lot of them did.
Yeah, most
My mom was just talking to me yesterday about how she went to this lady's house who was like a brownie scout or whatever, you know, whatever the Girl Scout troop leader, you know, and she was like a mother who was like, you know, married and went to her house and just was like, you know, it's kind of like cluttered, you know, it wasn't like a hoarder, but just a lot of stuff. And I'm like, I bet that's what all my friends' houses look like. don't you think maybe it's because you grew up in like the late 50s, early 60s, where everyone made sure all of their stuff was
every
prim
spec
and
was.
proper.
That's how my
so when you
mom
went to a
is, too,
normal
yeah.
person's house,
Yeah.
especially living in an upstairs double in Lakewood as a mother, they probably didn't have enough room as like a girl. And my mom's like, oh yeah.
My
I think
mom-
people don't look like transgenerationally
Yeah.
to where they come up with opinions
Yeah.
about things, and there's more to it than usually like, why did you feel that way then? Apparently, a lot of people hated Nixon enough to write and draw cartoons about him.
years and decades
Well,
after, yeah.
to the point where people whose only reference to him is other
Cartoon
cartoons
from the-
about
yeah,
him.
yeah.
Yes,
I mean, he
the
must have been a
character.
hated man.
He's like a Russian nesting doll.
And by the way, I'm still say I hate him because he seems to be hated by people I really respect.
Yeah, that's
Right.
how I
And
end
I
up.
remember when I
know.
was younger, like one of my first like things about like remember Nixon. Nixon was
When you nixed your remembrance
Yes.
of Nixon.
You saw him on Laughing, and you were like, "Fuck that guy."
he had a library after he died. He had a library dedicated to him, and I was like,
No, it wasn't after he
Wait.
died. After you're president, you create your presidential library. They all do
Yeah,
that.
they come back
Oh.
from the dead like a Lick King or like a
everyone
demigod.
gets a presidential.
George
library?
H.W. Bush has a presidential library. Bill
Oh.
Clinton has a presidential
Well, that
library.
ruins everything.
Gerald
because
Ford has a
my
presidential
thought-
library. Jimmy
My thought
Carter.
was, why does he get a library?
Ronald
All I know
Reagan.
is bad things that he did.
All of the other presidents before the ones I just named.
I know Clinton had one.
Yeah.
and I was okay with that
Full
because
of
it's
old
full
playboys.
of porn.
They get high schools.
You know what? The other thing, they could have totally used and did a Clinton thing instead of Nixon in this episode because it was like that was more concurrent with what was going on.
Yeah, but Clinton was cool.
right
he
at
wasn't
the
like a-
time, like he hadn't
I-
fucked up yet.
You didn't want to make him this cartoonist villain.
I
you know.
think if I mean maybe it's just in hindsight, but to me it seems like the episode's about voter apathy, and like one vote does make a difference. So they were basically throwing a monster,
And how current
Not-
is this
I
right
know.
now?
not
It's
Jimmy
coming
not
back.
Jimmy Carter,
I don't know what you're talking
America's
about.
greatest monster.
Oh, there's a presidential library in Mentor. Mentor.
Garfield?
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
Oh,
Futurama.
Garfield,
from now on.
man.
Yeah.
I go to his casket often.
Well, I'm just saying no, but there's an actual presidential library in the city we live in.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well, is there presidential books there?
probably
Good.
Like-
Is the Constitution there?
not the original one.
Oh. Well, then it's not the real presidential library.
Yeah.
Question: what else do you think's in a library?
2 DVDs, because that's what they can fit it on in the Mars library.
Not at Lakewoods. You can edit this all out. I hate the Lakewood Library because one day I went there and I returned a bunch of things. I
Yeah.
returned a whole bunch of stuff, and in the drop off, then I went upstairs to the media room, and they're like, well, you check in with your library card. I give them my library card, and they're like, you have books out. I'm like, yeah, I put them downstairs. And they're like, okay, well, we have to go make sure that you did return them. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go look around. No, you stand right here, and then I'll come back. And she made me stand in that spot for almost 15 minutes.
That's a weird like
What the hell
domination
is that?
power game.
That's like fucking and because Lakewood is a private library, it is not a public library. They
Yeah.
can kind of do that.
Yeah.
Well,
But
it's-
I felt really like I'm not. I'm just gonna be here. If you can't even trust me, like, what's the point of a library?
It is a
You look
public
like the type of person
library,
that's
but
gonna
like
steal books.
yeah,
I'm gonna just go steal their whole run of paperback Naruto.
you're gonna go
trades.
get those.
You have to read them the backwards.
You're
way.
gonna get all those Spin Doctor CDs and not take them back.
I think I nailed it with Naruto, but all right.
I have a question for everyone.
Wait. I'll give you $50 for the kid. My clothes are worth $50.
30.
No, it's 50.
No, it's
I
50.
thought it was 30.
It's
Is it?
50.
Yeah.
Really?
It's 50.
What was he wearing?
Was
that
your
worth
question
50?
how much tough love we gave ourselves as teenagers?
No, I just want to know for all of you if I'm going to dumb it down. If you would take candy from a baby, as
Oh, that
Morbo
was-
asked the
that was a
candidate.
great,
Well, even
that
more,
was great.
Morbo was so wildly biased. It
My
was
good
fantastic.
friend Richard Nixon.
Puny Human 1, Puny Human 2.
And his line
got
was
his-
how the family is
Belligerent
Question-
and
numerous.
numerous. Yeah, his one of my favorite Morbo lines.
That's good.
all human.
Nixon's pro-family and pro-war.
And then when they ask him about the candy, like the actual outside of the jar starts to sweat.
Oh yeah, just like the that was a
It's
there's it's not that often, but there are certain things that come up on Futurama that directly remind me of The Simpsons, and I know
Yeah,
they're referencing something else. So it's like, all right, is this an independent thought that this writer had, or is this
they're
something that they're
not.
like, well, we're borrowing this because The Simpsons is our father, you know, like we're.
They're not doing that because in my YouTube channel where I just compile like funny things. I literally have both of those.
How do we find that
Simpsons,
YouTube channel?
I haven't made it public.
But
okay.
You know that was part of the whole thing with Nixon and Kennedy is that
Yeah, was that they were doing.
he wouldn't
it was
wear
one of the-
makeup on.
It was one
on
of the first big
televised
debates, and yeah,
and he sweated like a pig.
yeah.
And he wouldn't wear makeup because makeup was
And,
for queers.
I, too, have
handsome
a
Kennedy could have said anything, and you know,
Yeah.
you know, which doesn't explain anything about current.
Well,
current
he was all
election going
jacked up on
because
amphetamines and
nobody
all
looks
sorts of
good.
other stuff. It was like, I think Kennedy's bloodstream was 60% amphetamines, 20% alcohol, and like another 15% STD
Irish.
medication.
Wow.
Mercury or whatever
I
they
like
were
n-
using back then.
None of it was like water.
No.
Not even carbon.
No, absolutely not.
Wow, we're like 90% water, and he was.
Well, that was just his blood. I mean,
it's
so
still
you're not
water.
talking about like the intracell fluid.
Look, I know it's not a science podcast, but that math don't add up.
There's
Come
still-
on, sheeple.
there's
Read
still-
between the lines.
still 5%.
Pete Woodward's full of it, and he
With
knows
60%
it.
and
Pete's a lizard
20% and 15%, which is 95%. That leaves another 5% for conjecture.
I thought it was 80% water.
Leaves 5% for conjecture. He's 5% conjecture.
Look,
That,
Bender can be 40% every other goddamn thing. I don't see why Kennedy can't be,
That's
number
why
of
I'm allowed to
things,
open
too.
a casino because I'm 5% conjecture.
that lie detector bit in this, I thought was great. You got
Oh yeah, no, that was
off
good.
there a
Yeah.
lot, but
Yeah.
the
I don't know.
question's or is it unfair?
we-
you don't say what type of candy.
I
We
would
missed the
definitely
whole
not
part.
harm the child.
But one thing's for sure, I definitely would not harm the child.
We missed the whole part about the
We missed
Bender-
a lot of parts.
yes,
Yeah.
but the gambling
the
when
multi-head montage.
Yeah, that sucked.
It's so
It
bad.
really
so
sucked.
bad. It was like, oh yeah, what can we
They
throw in?
really
None
wasted
of them were like,
things
why
that
not
you
screw-
like.
why
Oh,
not
this
screw
is
him
his
in
life
there?
as a head. Like, oh, they're bowling with his head and whatever.
So, like,
It was-
that was really
Did you
dumb.
see Leela's ball only had one hole?
yeah, that was.
That's
you
like a
know,
big
was
eyeball.
there.
yeah.
Claudia Schiffer was a guest star in this episode. That doesn't
really-
matter.
she
to
really
any,
br-
yeah, like
any,
40
brought a
minutes
lot
ago
to
in this
it.
episode.
any teenage. No, it was later.
No, she was
at
in
the head
They
museum.
went to the head museum.
Oh,
She's
really?
good too.
But
she's gonna
but
appear
any
in next. She's gonna be modeling a swim cap.
swim cap issue, Sports Illustrated swim cap issue. That's I'm sure there's a lot of that. Then I wonder how much of that goes over the head of. You know, there's like if you're a teenager and you're watching Futurama now,
Wait, I'm not
you'll
gonna
know who
step
Nixon
back
is.
to that one. It's gonna go over there. Way to go, Gus.
Whoa!
If you want, just backtrack,
got
make
it,
it, make it real,
I got it.
tight in there.
I
wait.
missed 100% of that.
He said it's
Claudia
gonna go over
Schiffer.
some people's heads.
Oh.
Real quick, Pete, I got to ask you a question since you're hashtag old man Pete.
Are you gonna finish that burger?
No.
Are you gonna finish that brochure?
On Nixon's door after the debate,
Yes.
it says, like, watch your hat and coat or something like that. Watch your hat and coat is what it says on his dressing room door. I didn't get that at all. I don't know if that was a...
Oh, that's got to be some sort of reference to something he did.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It was a bumper sticker or was that a
No,
sign?
it was
No,
a
like a
sign
sign on the
his
door?
door before
For his
Bender-
dressing room?
before they
For
jumped
Nixon's
out of
dressing
the
room?
laundry.
Yeah.
On the
car
inside
clothes
of the
box or
door,
whatever that
like
was.
for
It was
his.
on the outside of the dressing
Like as
room
they were
door.
walking in the
Watch your
dressing room.
hat and coat.
I didn't even I didn't even see that sign in the episode. I could imagine it either being related to the Watergate break-in itself, or possibly like some kind of Red Scare code word or something that would get used by communists or
mean,
otherwise. I don't know, but
it could easily be
I'm
a
just
thing
guessing.
where Nixon used to be a real dick about you.
take
talking to
off
him.
your hat.
Well, and
Did
coat.
you-
I mean, that is
It
rude.
could have been. I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely.
you-
I
that
think
could have
we
actually
we
been
forget
like.
that there used to be like rules of etiquette
no, yeah,
that
yeah.
we don't do.
And
at
people
all.
used to wear hats and coats
do
a
you-
lot.
I mean, I'm wearing a hat right now. When it
And
gets cold out,
you know what?
I'm
You
notorious
missed
for
the
wearing
sign
coats.
that said "Watch your hat and coat," and you still have your hat on.
Another thing about me, I sleep almost every night.
It was,
and you're not afraid.
I
Who
go to the bathroom
knows
just
it?
like a regular guy, just like a regular
One leg at a time.
Right through your cloaca.
one dick at a time.
Tom, was your plan instead of looking that up to just ask Pete halfway through the podcast?
Just trying to see how old I actually am.
I didn't want to Google it because I wanted to.
Pete,
I
wait,
just,
you've been doing
you were hoping
Sudoku
that-
this whole time.
hoping that somebody
know.
could
Yeah,
let us know.
I thought
relaxes
one of us
me.
would. I'm surprised one of us didn't know that.
You know,
out
I'm
of
not
the
even
four
going
of
to
us.
look it up until this podcast comes out. So 216-438-1077. Somebody call in and tell me what this is about.
216.
Are we taking
Four-
calls right now?
No,
Oh,
we
damn
don't.
it.
No.
Oh,
The calls that will come in for this
that Mr.
podcast
Show
will come
skit?
out.
I mean, you
later.
can take like
Right? No,
you
that's
can
that
take
Mr.
calls maybe if like your wife calls
It's
you
that
or whatever.
Mr.
you
Show
can-
skit where it was like the
Oh, yeah,
call-in
yeah.
show, but next week, no, we're talking about.
Yeah.
So if you want to ask me a question about this, call in next week.
The only reference I can find casually to watch your hat and coat is some sort of saying or anecdote about we spend more time watching our hat and coat and didn't realize that our pants were gone. So it's like paying attention to
Could be
surface stuff and then
Oh, yeah.
not understanding
Could've
or
been a
not
That's
solid-
probably
not
it.
realizing
That's
that.
underneath.
That's
Yeah.
probably it. That's got to be it.
But
like I said, like I have a note in here that's like Nixon lines are funny, but are they dated to the
he's
point
talking
where
about Shaggy Peaceniks.
where are you getting? Were you getting?
But
the,
that's a sign. That's a little sign. That's like
I know,
that's like a
but
a
still,
cool thing
everything
for like
else. It's like there's just jokes about like communist, and then there's just jokes like
yeah. those are
watching
good,
it-
though, like what does he call him? Oh, damn it. His delivery of calling him like a something commie whatever was great. I can't remember what it was. Nixon called. I don't know. When they. I think it was just commie peaceniks or whatever he said.
Commie
It was-
Pinko.
Yeah, it was something. It was just
They did a quick reference saying that in the year 3000, computers are twice as fast as they were in 1973.
That was great. That was great. All right, so
Computers are twice as fast.
So all right, let's jump. To
And
the
let's
end.
face it, a little crazy.
yeah, his going to people's houses at night
And wreck the place up.
and what's the? That's a two-part.
I'm going to sell your children.
Yes,
for,
it says
sell
all
your
the
children
organs to the zoos for meat.
to the zoos for meat. And then I'm going to go into places' houses, people's houses tonight and wreck the place up.
And now we have
Shut
a
up,
presidential
checkers.
candidate
We're
who
on the
has
checkers
said
line, too. Oh.
that he could shoot
just
someone
went past
on
the
the
checkers
street
part.
and still win, and it's not that far off. Like we're living in crazy world now.
I don't know what you're
lived in
talking about.
crazy
Who are you?
world
You
before,
keep saying
though.
that right now is just like I don't. What are you referencing? Is there something going on in the world in America right now that reminds you of?
Jill Johnson.
all hail President Trump.
I mean, you know that before we did elect a guy president who starred in a movie where a chimpanzee was president, right? It's
true.
So like when everyone's like this with Trump, like it's crazy.
That's what
but
I think
we're
about.
that fucking
Wait,
crazy.
Wait, was that
before.
Dunson checks in? Was that
We had an actual chimpanzee as a president for 8 years.
It's
Millard Fillmore.
Wait, who was that?
Millard Fillmore.
So the episode ends with the robot vote coming in. It's the joke early on. Leela
They
makes
talk
a big
about how
deal
one
about-
vote can make a difference.
Yeah, Leela makes a big deal about them registering to vote, and then they all forget to vote, including her that day. Well, Fry's proud that he didn't vote. Well, no, he says it didn't matter because he didn't. It's not his fault because he didn't vote. Bender can't vote because he's a felon. Leela forgot, and the polls open at 7:59 and then close for the robot polls, and then he.
But only
it was zero
six-
votes for
only
Nixon.
6% of voter turnout.
Oh yeah, no,
for
3%.
human.
Was it 6%?
No, it was
No, it was
6%.
Okay,
It
yeah.
was 6. But what's funny is why didn't Nixon win by 4 votes or 3 votes?
That's also
They hammered one
Yeah,
vote doesn't
yeah.
count so much
Yeah.
that if it was just like, oh yeah, it was by like this many votes, and then they did, which I think they might have did in The Simpsons with the illegal immigrants one.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
They
yeah,
did where
yeah.
it lost by whatever.
Where-
and
where,
then- no, earlier in the episode they go into I'm never registered. But,
Was it John Quincy adding machine?
No, I meant earlier in The Simpsons.
Oh,
episode.
okay.
But they kind of do that. I think they do.
My favorite squadron is the Nye Mets. I just plumb forgot.
But I felt like they hammered that home, and every other point they made over and over again got tied up, except that, like, well, I'm just one person. My vote doesn't count.
Maybe the point they were really trying to nail home is that it doesn't matter whatever the fuck you do.
That's
No,
a good
'cause
question. What is
Just
the
the-
point?
6% still.
The machine is the machine and will run its course.
You know what? Right now, I would welcome Nixon's head on a giant robot body to enter this election.
Who's kicking who around now? I feel like
Wait, hang on. We would like some feedback from the listeners on who has the best and who has the worst Nixon impression in this episode, because we all lapsed into it somewhat unknowingly. I think
So
it's like
easy.
completely
Yeah.
subconsciously.
he doesn't even do it. He does a tiny little Haru in the background when they're all making a lot of noise, and that becomes a thing. He becomes a reoccurring character. which
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite reoccurring characters.
I need. Well, first off, I need to hear Tom's, and I want to hear him do Nixon's little dance. It's his new body.
No, I can't do a Nixon impression.
No, so
Nixon's back.
so Futurama
Technically,
is
we're all
coming out
doing
of-
a Billy West impression
yeah.
of Nixon.
is coming out of
Eddie Murphy did an impression of Richard Pryor. Got 2 albums and a career out of it.
Yeah.
He's still funny though, guys.
So the Futurama's coming right out of the, kind of that. I don't want to say that sitcoms didn't die, but I mean they did not have. They went from being every show was a sitcom to like let's try all these other things. But it came out of that story writing that The Simpsons, stuck to. Also of like here's these characters. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. They go through these adventures
Wacky
in half an hour or
adventures.
whatever. But then there's always that
Gratuitous
sitcom,
alien
Full
nudity.
House moment of, whether it's Fry and Bender, oh, we're friends and we should have done this or whatever, or it's like
Where
Leela
Amy
realizes
becomes a
like,
vegetarian.
Dave Coulier goes, cut it out. That
but,
kind of
but,
thing.
but there's always like even if it's sometimes
Sometimes it's like a
sometimes-
sitcom trope.
sometimes it is, and sometimes they.
You need to make a point, or we're just going to keep interrupting you.
Yeah, I kind of want to know where it's going.
Do you feel like there's a
God?
meaning in the last 3 minutes of
After this.
I mean, I don't, but
in this episode?
if this wraps up to you saying if they're a god,
No, next.
Do you feel like what do you take away from this episode as far as there being like an end point, like
yeah.
it doesn't have some episodes are just silly, but I mean,
Well,
do you
I mean,
think,
I think-
what do you think they were trying to
Archie
say?
gets
like,
really
with the
hung
end of
up
this?
on the moral of the story.
Yeah,
Well,
what?
they were making a point, but yeah, there isn't a moral.
No, yeah,
in
but I
this.
mean,
there's none.
There,
It's
for this one, sometimes
Well,
we've
the
had
whole
a couple
point-
where
well, I
I've
mean,
been
the
like,
whole
not
point's-
really.
going out and voting, but
Yeah,
no one tied it together.
yeah, there wasn't like a thing at the end where it was
overall,
like, oh,
and I mean, I'm sure that if only Futurama fans like this, they're gonna have a problem. But I don't think that this show pulled off what it was trying to do, and I think what it was trying to do, it hit those points and they were funny.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think at the end of it, you didn't walk away with anything, and they were making
not in
big
this one.
big points though.
In some of them, but I think they have tied a lot of the ends of Futurama episodes together and had that like
Right, I'm just saying this one.
this one.
No, yeah,
No.
this one.
I'm
so
trying
far
to
we've
put
hit
it
it
back.
with
Reusing Nixon though throughout kind of gives that whole thing a pass, because then now
It
he's a
introduces
character,
it.
like he's a character in the show,
Yeah.
and you're gonna love him. But
Well-
if you watch this as a one episode, here's 2 things it does poorly. It does not tie together very well. In like there isn't a moral.
Yeah,
no one
there
really
isn't a
thought
thing
it.
where, like,
you didn't
yeah.
really like. You're like, I guess that's what they were saying.
Yeah, that's basically what. Yeah, I
and
guess
it jumped into a point where there was not like a good show has like an introduction. You know what I mean? Like it'll be someone on a couch, or you'll get a feel for this person just out of like what's going on here. And this episode's just like boom, here's everything going, and it's hard. It's almost boom, here's everything going. It's over now. And then, like I was saying, through the direction of the episode and the cuts,
Yeah.
the
It
whole
was a
thing's
full
just like
episode.
boom,
It-
boom,
yeah.
boom, boom, boom.
I agree with
boom,
you.
boom,
Trying to
boom,
figure
the
out
end.
where the different acts and where things started and stopping was very hard to
There wasn't
understand.
a flow
it's,
through.
It's almost an episode where it's just like this is what's happening, and we're just gonna cram as much one-liners
jokes
as
and
we
punchlines
can
and
into
booms,
it.
yeah.
I mean, I thought this was absolutely
It was a
funny
episode.
No,
episode.
it was. There was a lot of good jokes. in
But
it.
was.
anybody just popping into a Futurama watching that episode, that I don't think that would be an
Wouldn't
episode.
get
they
a
would
lot
like.
out of it.
That's
I-
like
I
making
really-
Dan watch that episode of Doctor Who where David Tennant comes out of the TARDIS with the motorcycle.
Right,
Right
with
in
the
the
50s
beginning.
haircut, yeah.
I'm trying to put this into context going back too. So like around the time that Clinton got elected, especially the first time, like so back in 92, lots and lots and lots of like rock the vote outreach and really trying.
I
really
lay
trying
awake
to-
at night whether or not I should rock the vote or not.
Well,
I
but-
don't know.
But like,
You
especially
could-
like that was like
Motherfucker, you couldn't even smooth jazz the vote.
it was like
Rock the vote.
because it was trying to tap into this general feeling of apathy and fuck it that you saw with Gen X and whatnot, and so that was a big thing, and it worked to the Clintons' advantage for sure. Definitely mobilized a lot of young people and kind of pushed them into office for 8 years. I think some of that sort of like oomph had waned around the time of the 2000 election because you had Bush, who just seemed like a fucking shitheel frat boy. And Gore, who was okay, well, he was with the Clintons the whole time, but he's really kind of fucking boring and not very exciting to get behind and rally around.
He invented the internet.
right, but
Bush, who we'll refer
He
to
is-
as the good Trump for the
And
rest of
he
our
is
lives.
my possible all-time favorite joke in Futurama ever was from Al Gore. And it's when they show the different time frame, and he's like, that almost cost me a gallon of gas, which is now $100. Cars are now $100 a gallon. But that happened
great.
at the time when he was doing that, and that's why it's funny.
And-
In this episode, you're gonna throw Nixon in there as some sort of parables. Let's say, if,
Right.
what you're saying, Pete, where it's voter apathy or like what they're tapping into. What they were tapping into, if that's your case, is 10 years before that. You know what I mean? It's every election before that. That election, there was no rock the vote. People didn't care until Bush got elected and we realized he sucked.
Well, it
and then
was,
that's when it was like the rock against vote, Bush most of that other time. But my point being, though,
Yeah.
if they had Nixon and then maybe the two people he was like against were a robot and an alien that were similar to the two people
Yeah.
running, people might have liked that episode a little more. It might have hit a little better instead of like, it's just real. It's real loose, but they're trying to make a major point in that show, in it, and all these little points are big. Like the two
it's
major
almost like,
social
like
commentary
three
in that.
writers maybe at once were all trying to get their point across, and like everybody kind of hit each other, and it didn't really, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
everybody was
just-
throwing a lot of stuff into the pot, but there wasn't.
Some of it. I really think a lot of it's direction. I watch
yeah.
it back,
It's
and
one of
I'm
those
just,
episodes that,
even
yeah, it
like the
wasn't-
layouts of shots sometimes are not pleasant. All the shots of Fry and Bender sleeping just looks like crap. They could have made that look cute. They could have had Leela be like, see, how can this be boring when she's looking at the election? Pan back and they're sleeping. Come back from a cold shot to them sleeping. Like there's just it's just little things like that don't add up to the whole of what they're doing, listener. I'm not trying to knock this as an episode, but I mean, that's a major
and Sean
point.
would never shit on the show on our show. I mean, you have to go to his Twitter account for that.
Right. No,
I
I get what
thought
you're
you
saying,
would. That's
and
why I was,
you know what? Like, I never thought about it. Like, the reason why I like this episode a lot is because of the writing on this episode and the jokes that are just in there. But I get what you're saying, where there's a lot of like, it is the direction, and I always write down like whoever the writer is in my notes. I never write down who the director is, but now I'm gonna start paying attention and seeing like,
yeah, we
even if
should.
it's a
That's-
showrunner,
because it's
Yeah,
always
or like a
been
showrunner or something.
something
Well,
the writer has. Those are the episodes that I really like, and then now it's like I'm gonna narrow it down even more to where it's like these.
Yeah.
Well, I've watched.
You might
like,
notice that, yeah.
I've watched a lot of The Simpsons with their commentary on, and in them, they let you know like, oh well, this was so and so's first job, like
Yeah.
draw, and they had him draw that whole scene.
Yeah.
But they're not the overall director of like how it's gonna
Yeah.
kind of go. So some of that stuff where I'm like, yeah, this shot was ugly. That could have been, the artist who did that actually,
Yeah.
whatever. And like I said, I was saying earlier with the commercials, that could eliminate some of that. Because some of those things where it is just a
Yeah.
drop in it could have been after
Yeah.
a 2-minute break.
Yeah.
And it's hard sometimes, I feel, to really watch that. It makes everything very like breakneck and like herky-jerky.
Have you ever tried to watch Simpsons on FX now?
Yeah,
The
I
app-
don't have
without
one now. If
commercials?
anyone wants to give me their FXX app, but I would use that so much. I'm a cord cable cutter.
Some
3
of
years
their
strong.
commercials
Send your FXX passwords to slurmcastpod@gmail.com.
or Tommy at slurmcast.com or Peter at slurmcast.com or Horsey at slurmcast.com.
You're
Because
just
it all goes to the same email.
or just Sean Jaundice on Facebook.
Right.
Or Sean Jaundice on Twitter. What's
on-
your Twitter thing?
On that
Sean
app.
Jaundice.
On that app or whatever. Or
Instagram,
even
Sean Jaundice.
the commercial breaks sometimes don't correspond with the correct commercial breaks in the episodes.
Oh.
And it ruins things because the jokes like get lost or it cuts in
Yeah.
between
Well,
something.
Oh, I hate
That
that.
show's definitely was on the air when they dropped it from 24 minutes to 22.
Oh, yeah.
Run times.
It was
They
probably
made a big
28
deal on
when
The
they
Simpsons
started.
too, because it's weird what you can do in 2 minutes. You think it's
Yeah.
nothing, but
No.
they'll cut stuff for time, and sometimes
For
that's stuff
parts
for
of other
time.
scenes, or just that's a couple of scenes.
Remember
breath
that guy
for
used to say
animation?
we'll
Just
be
a
back
breath,
in
too,
2 and
you know,
2
that
or
can make
whatever.
stuff
Chuck
funny.
Woolery
Yeah.
on Love Connection,
2 and 2. We'll be back in 2 and 2.
which was like televised Tinder in the 80s.
He also only had 2 fingers on that one hand, so that's
Right.
why.
Look,
And that is why commercials were that long because they were like, you can only count that high in one hand.
So I like to play a little game at the end of.
Oh wait, it's the end.
Each
How quick
podcast.
can we take our clothes off?
I like to ask each guest a quiz question. What is your?
this is the first time he's done this.
What is your? Well, that ruins it. It was a bit, but it's
Sean
ruined now.
Jaundice, come
I
on
was
down.
gonna, you know.
You know, one of the tenets of improv is yes and, not you didn't.
No, but
None of that is true.
no.
I am tired. I rode the bus today, and I normally don't because I'm a doctor. No, none of that's real. What's that? What is it in the?
You're an
in the-
improv
I'll
actor. What are
bring
you
up-
talking about?
I'll bring up The Simpsons, where it's Chalmers and Skinner doing the baseball.
Oh,
skit,
yeah,
the
who's
vaudeville
on
thing, and he was
first.
like, but a player named who, not the adverb of it. Well, Seymour, we've been up here for 30 minutes, and he already ruined the bit. And then no one remembers he says this as he's walking away. He's going, "You sexless freak." He's like muttering to himself, but you sexless freak.
So what game do we always
Yes.
play, Archie,
Oh,
that
yeah, all
you're
the time.
talking
What's
about?
what's your question?
Well, now it's ruined. But
I've never
like,
played a game before. Can you explain what one
the
of those
build
are?
up doesn't make it. It's funny, or what I was just gonna say. What is your relationship with your father like?
That's a game?
But it's not. But it sounded like we were gonna play a game, and then
if you say it with more confidence, Tom can edit it back together.
edit it.
So
You
You
it's
could
not
edit that
funny.
whole thing and just
I
like
know.
cut that whole. But that I don't know. That was the best part of my thing that wasn't funny to begin with. That
all those,
you know.
all those jokes making fun of you. Is really funny,
that's what I
too.
just said. Yeah.
Why don't you take it again now and we'll let you do it, and then he'll edit it in before what we actually did first.
People want to find you online. You have a number of different creative pursuits. You you do
Yeah,
stand
do
up
you have any of your
comedy.
stupid music out there that you
You
want
do
people to
art.
find?
You're a musician. You're a tattoo artist. It's a lot of stuff. You're a Renaissance man.
Do you want any of our listeners in Texas to come
That's-
find you
what's
to get a
funny-
tattoo?
What's funny is when I do stand up, all the comics that I've known here usually would say that I'm a Renaissance man to a point that it is now funny. Not when they bring it up, but to other comics where it's like, that's so lame that you do that. But you said it exactly.
Huh.
Renaissance man. Was that in reference? Have you heard that?
I don't think I think I've only seen you perform stand up like 2 or 3 times.
I only consider myself a Renaissance man because I'm into fat chicks.
And you have that job painting that church ceiling.
They were referred to as Rubenesque. I was taking a pot shot.
Like Pee Wee Herman.
I got it.
It's very misleading.
You guys
Or
wanna
like a
call me when you
sandwich
have a
very
cereal?
close to a Reuben. It's Reuben.
Well, I would like to take.
Wait. Are these ladies made out of corned beef?
So it's just Sean Jaundice on any platform.
Look at the size of that platform.
At would help. You can at could do that. But
Well, can I just say, Tom, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Pete, thank you. You've been great.
I know.
Well, see you later.
No, you can find Slurmcast at, you know what? Go to www.slurmcast.com. You can find everything right there. That's our new thing. We have slurmcast.com now. And then you can find at our Horchie. Dot.
Isn't it hard to
Clownpenis
say?
dot
Isn't it just weird? Well, I don't know. I'm bored.
Well, I probably
done?
would do a better drop-in if I really knew that that's how you were gonna do that. So
No,
yeah.
promote.
It would be Sean
Yeah,
Jaundice
that's
and
what we
everything.
were gonna. Yeah.
Facebook's usually like just an average all-around one for events, but Instagram's where I only do art. I really only put art on there.
Okay. Yeah.
Twitter's only comedy, but it's as time's gone on, I realize that the content you put out on Twitter's sort of useless.
It just
It's-
you're throwing it
refreshes
into a black
so-
hole.
It just refreshes so quick.
We've been
I have to really think of
retweeted
something.
by Billy West,
saying
Eric
it's-
Kaplan, the writer, and
Hutch Harris from the Thermals this week, wasn't
that
it?
was like you named one guy and then you
Didn't
started
we get
naming
retweeted by
friends.
Hutch Harris, or is that just a like?
Nope.
No. I think that's that. But
And
I mean,
the retweets don't matter either. Nobody
No.
cares. Quick edit point. So this episode opens with from the makers of Futurama. What do you guys think that cartoon was?
All right, let's take that all with you.